Jay-Z, in a room with Drake, Future, Pat Riley, pointed at J. Cole and told Drake to give him a hit. His own signee, sitting right there. Future's face said everything. Cole drank Hennessy for the rest of the night. Nobody talked about it, until Cole put it in a bar. And now there's footage. A protege caught on camera going at the man who made him. A mentor breaking his silence with uncontrollable anger. A dismissed lawsuit, Epstein file discourse, and $20 million in Roc Nation contracts reportedly gone. The footage is out. The attack is on record. This is the real story. Let's get into it. There is new footage of J. Cole going directly at Jay-Z, and it is spreading across every corner of the internet right now like wildfire in a drought. We have the clip, we have the receipts, and by the time this video is finished, you are going to understand not just what was said, but why it was said, what it actually means for one of hip-hop's most quietly complicated relationships, and why the timing of all of this, coming out right now in early 2026 during one of the most turbulent periods of Jay-Z's public life, is absolutely no coincidence. But before we get to the footage, before we play you what J. Cole actually said on camera, we have to go back to where this whole thing started, because the earthquake you're feeling right now did not begin last week. It began with a single bar, one line, buried inside a song that the entire hip-hop world had been waiting years to hear. J. Cole releases The Fall Off, his 7th studio album, and what he has publicly presented as his farewell to the album format. Dropped on February 6, 2026, through Dreamville and Interscope Records. This is the project Cole had been building toward, teasing and promising for the better part of 8 years. It is a 24-track double album structured across 2 distinct discs, Disc 29 and Disc 39, referencing 2 pivotal ages in Cole's life, 2 trips back home to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and 2 very different versions of the man who made it out. The concept is sprawling, ambitious, deeply personal, and by most measures it debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, making it Cole's 7th consecutive chart-topping release. 7 albums, 7 #1s, a record that speaks for itself. But here is where it gets complicated. Here is where the internet stopped talking about the music and started talking about something else entirely. The lead single from The Fall Off is a song called The Fall Off Is Inevitable. It appears on Disc 39, the older, more reflective half of the album, and it is, without question, one of the most technically intricate and conceptually bold things Cole has ever recorded. The song narrates Cole's life in reverse chronology, inspired by Nas's legendary Rewind, moving backward from death, unraveling success layer by layer, until it arrives at pure ambition. At the hungry teenager who hadn't yet accomplished anything but was already dreaming about overtaking everyone above him. It is a remarkable piece of work. And buried inside of it, there is one line, one phrase that sent the entire hip-hop internet into a frenzy. The line goes, "Signed to my hero, one of the so-called kings of this rap thing that I swear to usurp." Now, let us be very careful and very precise about what happened next, because the reaction to that line tells you everything you need to know about where J. Cole stands in the culture right now, and about how tense the air has quietly become between him and the man he was once signed to. The moment fans heard "Signed to My Hero" followed immediately by so-called kings, the math was immediate, because there is only one hero Cole has ever publicly credited as a foundational influence on his entire career. There is only one person he famously waited outside a studio for in the rain in 2007, mixtape in hand, desperate just to be seen. There is only one person who signed him, who made him the first official artist on an entirely new label. And that person is Jay-Z. So when Cole raps about a so-called king, he swore to usurp. And usurp is not a subtle word. It means to overthrow, to seize power from someone who holds a throne. And this comes in the same breath as referencing his hero. The fuse was lit. Clips of the bar started flooding Twitter. Threads started being written. TikTok audio was cut and recut. The speculation machine that powers modern hip-hop discourse locked on like a guided missile. And within hours, the narrative being pushed everywhere was simple. J. Cole just dissed Jay-Z. And then the footage dropped. The new footage, spreading across YouTube, Instagram, and X right now, is J. Cole's appearance on the 7 p.m. in Brooklyn podcast with Carmelo Anthony, recorded in March 2026 and shared widely in the days that followed. And what Cole says in that footage, or what he goes on record to say about that line, about Jay-Z, about what was and was not intended, is the kind of clarification that answers one question while quietly opening about 5 others. Because what Cole does in that clip is not simply explain a lyric, it is navigate a minefield. It is walk the tightrope between loyalty and honesty in real time, on camera, with the entire culture watching. Cole is sitting there, remarkably calm, and he walks through the lines step by step. He explains that the song is a reverse narrative, that he is not rapping as the 39-year-old man he is today, but as the teenage version of himself who had not done anything yet, who was sitting in Fayetteville dreaming about one day surpassing the Giants. He says the so-called King reference was meant in the spirit of Biggie's phrasing, as a reverent label, not a dismissive one. He is rapping as a kid who called Jay-Z a king because that is genuinely how he saw him, and who swore he would one day match that level. It is a statement of aspiration, he says, not aggression. He even uses the Kobe Jordan analogy. He says rapping about surpassing Jay-Z is no different from Kobe Bryant publicly stating he wanted to be better than Michael Jordan. It is not disrespect. It is the ultimate form of tribute. You only compete with the people you consider to be the very best. Now, here is where you need to pause and really sit with something. Because Cole's explanation is clean. It is coherent. It is the kind of answer that, on its surface, should end the conversation entirely. And yet, the footage kept spreading. The clips kept getting shared. The comment sections kept exploding. Because what Cole said made sense logically, but it did not erase what people felt when they heard the bar. And in 2026, in the world we are currently living in, a world where Jay-Z's name is attached to more controversy than perhaps any other moment in his career, feelings are carrying a whole lot more weight than logic. J. Cole's manager, Ibrahim Ibn Hamad, had already tried to shut down the broader beef narrative back in February 2026, describing the speculation as being pushed by people who like controversy and engagements. But managers saying things and artists saying things are 2 different categories. And the fact that Cole himself felt the need to get in front of a camera and address this, that alone told you something. That alone told you the noise had gotten loud enough that silence was no longer an option. What the footage actually shows you is a man carefully, deliberately, publicly making peace. And the question the internet refuses to stop asking is, why does peace need to be made at all? To understand why that single lyric landed with the force that it did, why a handful of words in a reverse chronology rap narrative sent the entire internet into a spiral, you have to understand the full weight of the history sitting underneath it. Because the story of J. Cole and Jay-Z is not a simple one. It is not a clean mentor and student fable. It is a 2-decade-long relationship built on admiration, ambition, business, independence, occasional whispers of tension, and a level of mutual respect that has somehow survived all of it. And there are chapters of that story that most people either forgot or never fully knew in the first place. Let's start at the very beginning. J. Cole, born Jermaine Cole, raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, grew up treating Jay-Z not as an artist he enjoyed, but as a standard he intended to meet. As a teenager, Cole did not collect Jay-Z's albums. He studied them. He dissected them the way a medical student dissects an anatomy textbook, methodically, obsessively, with the kind of focus that is really just another word for love. By 2007, Cole had moved to New York to attend St. John's University, and he was grinding on mixtapes. The Come Up dropped that same year, while simultaneously trying to figure out how to get himself in front of the people who mattered. And in what has since become one of hip-hop's most storied moments of bold, borderline irrational persistence, Cole waited outside a recording studio in the rain for hours in 2007 just to hand Jay-Z a demo during the American Gangster recording sessions. Jay-Z declined. politely, reportedly, but declined. He was serving as president of Def Jam at the time and wasn't in the business of taking unsolicited CDs from strangers outside studios. Most people in Cole's position would have gone home, reassessed, maybe reconsidered the whole plan. Cole went home and made a t-shirt. It read, "Produce for Jay-Z or die trying." That is the kind of obsession that either looks insane or looks like prophecy, depending on how things turn out. And in 2009, it looked like prophecy. Jay-Z had just launched Rock Nation, and A&R executive Mark Pitts played him a J. Cole track called Lights Please. That was enough. Cole became the first official artist signed to Rock Nation, a distinction that is both symbolic and historically significant. He appeared on Jay-Z's The Blueprint 3 that same year, on a track called A Star Is Born. He recorded his verse live in the same room as Jay-Z and Beyoncé. He has described it as one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of his life. But here is what nobody talks about when they tell that story. Here is the part that has quietly been circulating in whispers for years, and that recently resurfaced in a clip that adds a very specific texture to everything Cole has been saying publicly about their relationship. This is from a video circulating on X, posted by the account Zadkazi. The person speaking is describing a scene at Jay-Z's King's Dinner, the exclusive all-star weekend gathering that LeBron James and Jay-Z co-host every year at the NBA All-Star festivities. This particular dinner took place in Los Angeles. In the room, Pat Riley, Dwayne Wade, Future, Drake, J. Cole, the elite of the elite. And then Jay-Z walks in. According to the person telling this story, who was present at the dinner, Jay-Z walked in, saw Drake and J. Cole together, locked eyes with Drake, pointed at Cole, and said something to the effect of, "Yo, get a boy one. Give him a hit. Give him a hit." Like Cole, who at this point already had a major label deal, who was being commercially compared to Drake in every conversation about the future of rap, who had a collab with Drake on his most recent project, needed Jay-Z to essentially send him to Drake with his hand out. At the height of Drake and Cole being positioned as commercial rivals, the man who signed Cole walked into a room and publicly implied that Cole needed Drake to hand him a commercial moment. The person recounting this says they felt embarrassed for Cole, and then, in one of those small, vivid details that make a story feel devastatingly real, they describe looking over at Cole for the rest of the night and watching him drink Hennessy, heavily, with the energy of someone who has been publicly diminished and is processing it in real time. Now, we have to be fair here. Jay-Z's comment at that dinner could be interpreted multiple ways. It might have been a joke. It might have been his version of encouragement. Go link with Drake. Make something big. But in a room full of the most status-conscious people on the planet, the optics of what he did were undeniable. And Cole, who has built his entire brand around refusing to compromise his artistry for commercial appeal, who released 2014 Forest Hills Drive with 0 features precisely to prove he did not need anyone else's shine, understood exactly what that moment communicated. Jay-Z has acknowledged in recent interviews that his approach to developing Cole was intentionally hands-off. He described suggesting opportunities, like working with production duo Stargate, who had crafted massive hits for Rihanna and Wiz Khalifa, but insisting that he never forced Cole to take any of them. He has said, in his own words, that an artist's expression should be their expression, and that he falls back and lets them find their path. Some people hear that and call it wisdom. Others hear it and wonder if hands off sometimes looked a little too much like hands out of the way. Cole eventually parted ways with Rock Nation's artist roster around 2020 to focus fully on his own Dreamville Records imprint. He has publicly praised the transition, crediting Jay-Z and Rock Nation for restructuring his original deal into a distribution arrangement that allowed him to gain ownership of his masters earlier than the typical label timeline would have permitted. He has called it a blessing. He has said they did the right thing. But in Jay-Z's own recent interview, and this is the detail that jumped out at everyone paying close attention, he let slip a word that tells you the transition was not entirely frictionless. Audits. He said audits. As in, the kind of financial scrutiny that happens when a business relationship ends, and both parties need to account for exactly what moved in which direction over the years. As in, the kind of behind-the-scenes complication that rarely makes headlines, but frequently makes tempers flare. The kind of thing that can make a clean break a little less clean in practice. Jay-Z frames it as an opportunity, a chance for Cole to prove he was above board. But even the framing of that phrase carries a particular energy. You do not typically need to prove you were above board unless there was a moment when someone wondered if you might not be. And now, on top of all of this, Jay-Z is living through arguably the most turbulent stretch of his public life in recent memory. A civil lawsuit filed in late 2024 accused Jay-Z of sexual assault. The suit was eventually dismissed, but the allegations generated enormous media coverage and shook his reputation in ways that even his most loyal defenders acknowledged were damaging. Reports suggest Roc Nation lost sports and entertainment contracts worth approximately $20 million annually as a direct result of the publicity surrounding those allegations. And then the Epstein files began circulating. In January 2026, 0.6% of the Epstein documents were made public, described by commentators as the softest portion of what is believed to be a far larger collection of documents. Jay-Z's name entered the conversation. His Instagram reportedly saw him lose millions of followers in a single day as the discourse intensified online. Whether or not any allegations against him are substantiated, the court of public opinion moves fast, and the cultural moment Jay-Z is navigating right now is unlike anything he has faced before. Into this environment, J. Cole drops a lyric about a so-called king he swore to usurp, and the footage of him explaining it goes viral, and people cannot figure out whether it is a coincidence or a statement, whether Cole is being loyal or finally being honest, whether the line is just a line or a carefully placed mirror. If J. Cole's podcast footage lit the match, then Jay-Z's response poured gasoline on an entirely different kind of fire. Because Jay-Z, a man who has historically treated silence as a weapon, who has gone years without sitting down for a substantive interview, who has built an almost mythological aura around his inaccessibility, suddenly broke cover. He sat down. He talked. He spoke about J. Cole directly, about the lawsuit, about the culture, about everything. And the language he chose was the language of a man who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time, and who has decided, finally, that he is done being patient about it. In a rare GQ cover interview published as the April 2026 issue, conducted by writer Fraser Tharp, timed to coincide with Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt and the Blueprint anniversary, shows at Yankee Stadium. Jay-Z did something he almost never does. He went deep. He admitted vulnerability. He described 2025 not as a tough year, but as a heartbreaking one. And he was unambiguous about what broke his heart. Tony Busby is the attorney who filed the civil lawsuit that accused Jay-Z of sexual assault. The suit was dismissed, something Jay-Z is very deliberate about mentioning, the word dismissed carrying the full weight of legal vindication in his delivery. But the emotional cost of fighting it, of watching allegations spread across the internet before any due process had occurred, of watching business partners quietly distance themselves, that Jay-Z says he is still processing, uncontrollable anger, from a man who built his entire reputation, commercially, culturally, spiritually, on the idea that composure is power. Jay-Z is someone who has told the story of his own Marcy Projects childhood, his years selling drugs before music, surviving on the streets without going to jail, getting shot at 3 times without a bullet touching him. He has framed all of that as evidence of divine protection, of a life guided by something larger than circumstance. And now he is sitting in front of a camera describing anger he could not control. That is not a small admission. That is a man telling you that 2025 reached him somewhere the streets never did. He also addressed the rumors about him and J. Cole directly and emphatically. He pushed back hard on the narrative, circulating among fans for years, that Roc Nation somehow failed Cole, held him back, or did not invest in him the way he deserved. He described the Roc Nation chapter as something he is genuinely proud of, not because of what he gave Cole, but because of what he didn't do. He didn't micromanage. He didn't force commercial compromises. He created space and let the artist fill it on his own terms. It took him a minute. That phrase, quiet, measured, delivered with the ease of a man who has had years to arrive at it, is doing a remarkable amount of work. Because it took him a minute acknowledges the distance. It acknowledges the time. It is a diplomatic way of saying there were years when this was not simple, when the path was unclear, when the relationship between what Cole wanted to be and what the industry wanted him to be created friction. But Jay-Z's framing insists that friction was not conflict, it was growth. And on the question of their current relationship, the one most people have been waiting years for either of them to address with any specificity, Jay-Z's answer is precise. He says the audits and business complexities exist and are real, but that he sees them not as proof of bad blood, but as an opportunity, a chance for everyone involved to prove they were operating with integrity. And then he says, with the calm of a man who means it, that he has no negative feelings for Cole, that he is, in fact, proud. What is striking about Jay-Z's relationship to the Drake-Kendrick beef, and to J. Cole's brief involvement in it, is how much his perspective lines up with Cole's own post-beef reflections. Both men have arrived at the same place, seemingly independently. The view that rap beefs in the social media era have evolved into something corrosive and potentially irreversible. Jay-Z said in the GQ interview that the Drake-Kendrick situation produced extraordinary music but left behind a kind of tribalism that troubles him deeply. Jay-Z questioned openly in the interview whether battle rap still belongs in hip-hop culture in its current form. He noted that the four original pillars of hip-hop, breakdancing, graffiti, DJing, and battling, have all evolved significantly. Breakdancing is now an Olympic sport, graffiti has become gallery art, the DJ is no longer front and center in mainstream rap, and battling, Jay-Z says, has become something the internet makes permanent and personal in ways that hip-hop was never designed to sustain. He described people who love Kendrick now hating Drake regardless of what Drake makes or says. And he called that dynamic something he is not sure is helpful to anyone's growth. When the conversation turned to Jay-Z's decision to select Kendrick Lamar to headline the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show, a decision that Drake fans loudly interpreted as Jay-Z picking a side in the beef, Jay-Z's response was almost dismissively simple. He said he picked the guy who was having a monster year. He said the stats backed it up. He said Kendrick broke audience records and the math was not complicated. And then he said something that, if you were paying attention, told you exactly how Jay-Z thinks about his own place in the ecosystem. Jay-Z on being accused of conspiracy against Drake. He laughed. He described being dragged into narratives that cast him as some kind of orchestrator of Drake's downfall. And his response was simple. I'm fucking Jay-Z, respectfully. Like for what? To what end? He is not choosing sides in a battle between two artists. He is operating on a different altitude entirely, or at least that is what he needs people to understand. But perhaps the most significant thing Jay-Z said in that entire interview, the sentence that has been quoted and requoted and screen grabbed and reposted more than anything else, came when he described his mindset heading into 2026. After a year of lawsuits and allegations and followers lost and business disrupted and public image shaken to its foundations, Jay-Z looked at the camera and made a declaration. We played enough defense. 2026 is all offense. That is the kind of sentence that has layers. On the surface, it is motivational language, the kind of framing a man uses when he has been knocked around and wants to communicate that he is getting back up. But underneath it, there is a specific acknowledgement that for the entirety of 2025, Jay-Z was on defense. He was reacting to allegations, to narratives, to public scrutiny, to business fallout. He was spending his energy explaining and clarifying and surviving. And now, with the anniversary shows at Yankee Stadium booked, with a GQ cover story timed for the spring, with 2026 beginning on his terms, he is declaring that the posture has changed. What does all offense look like for Jay-Z in 2026? Does it mean new music, something he has been vague about but has not definitively ruled out, describing scratch ideas he has made as too dark and all bad, but also leaving the door open? Does it mean legal counter-moves against those who accelerated the false narratives around the lawsuit? Does it mean a more visible, more vocal public presence after years of strategic silence? Or does it mean something in the direction of the culture, the hip-hop world he has watched wrestle with its identity through the Drake-Kendrick battle, through declining mainstream chart dominance, through a generational conversation about what rap actually stands for in 2026? What we know for certain is this. J. Cole clarified that he did not write a diss. Jay-Z confirmed there is no bad blood. The official version of this story is that two artists from one of hip-hop's most meaningful mentor-protege pairings are in a good place, with mutual respect intact, navigating the distance between where they started and where they both ended up with maturity and grace. But the internet, which watched the footage, which heard Cole's careful words and Jay-Z's even more careful words, which remembers the King's dinner, which noticed the audits, which did not miss the Hennessy, the internet is not entirely convinced. Because the thing about hip-hop, the thing that makes it different from every other art form, is that it was built on the principle that the truth lives in the bars, not in the interviews, not in he press releases, not in the "there's no bad blood" statements that two powerful men give when the cameras are on. The truth lives in the music, and J. Cole put the truth in the music. He rapped about the so-called king he swore to usurp. And then he spent 3 minutes on a podcast explaining why that means something else entirely. You decide which one you believe.